You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Welcome to Marvel Makeup. I'm Quincy.
And I'm Kay, and this is a podcast where I teach Quincy a little bit about Marvel.
And I teach Kay a little bit about makeup.
Watch out, there are major MCU spoilers ahead.
Lots of them ahead.
And today we are jumping into Spider-Man Far From Home, the second Spider-Man movie in the MCU. It was released on July 2nd, 2019. Directed by John Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, who all worked on the previous Spider-Man Homecoming movie, and in our current timeline, now currently released Spider-Man No Way From Home, the third MCU movie, which just got released this weekend.
Which I'm so excited to see.
I'm avoiding the internet because I do not want to see spoilers because I intend there's probably a lot happening. And also, fun fact, John Watts is slated to direct the MCU Fantastic Four movie, which is going to be part of Phase 4.
They're remaking it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it will be the actual, similarly to like Spider-Man, there's been non-MCU versions of Fantastic Four. This will be the MCU version of Fantastic Four.
Will Chris Evans play the Flame?
I doubt it because he did the other one. But you know, it's
listen, they had J.K. Simmons come back. I freaking flipped when I saw him.
Yeah.
I was like, what? From the
yeah.
Tobey Maguire days? Like, fuck yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll so get into that. I mean, and that's, I mean, a little bit of, so you know, kind of like the gist of the current Spider-Man movie that is about to come out?
No, I have nothing. I just know, I know one tiny spoiler because it was like an internet trap where I was like, oh, William Dafoe, I love him. And then it was like a trap.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, it's kind of related to that. But we will touch on that once we get to that part of it. But just to tell you a little bit about what was happening in 2019, when this movie first came out, the Scripps National Spelling Bee ended in a historic 8-way tie that year. The remaining contestants, all of whom were under 15, made it through 20 rounds, and the judges literally ran out of words. I thought that was a funny. I
didn't know there was that many words in the English dictionary to stump judges.
Yeah. And they were just like, we're done. We have nothing more to give. And since,
you know that there was an Asian child on that. Was there an Asian winner? Because
there was probably multiple. I would assume there was multiple. Yeah, from the diaspora of Asian children that were on that.
Someone got in trouble for being a part of an 8-way tie win.
Yeah. There's like, you have to be number one, but there were 20 of us. We're all number one. 8 of us. Yeah. As something else that happened that year, Latinx was made part of the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Ally Stroker won the Tony Award. She was the first actress in a wheelchair to win that award. Lady Gaga won an Oscar for writing The Shallow for Star is Born. And actually, one thing that is more personal to me, the crossover event Crisis on Infinite Earths for the DC CW superhero shows happened that year, which I thought was related to this movie because they do mention the multiverse, and it is that that's kind of what that whole crossover event was related to. So yeah, just a few things that happened in 2019.
It's really cool.
But let's go ahead and dive into the movie. Hot take. Quincy, what was your takeaway from Far From Home?
I learned Tom Holland is British.
Yes, you texted me that in caps. Tom Holland is British? Question marks? Exclamation marks?
My brain exploded.
Wait,
I was like, what?
We didn't mention this during the first movie that he was British?
I don't think so. Because I had no idea. And my little brain exploded this morning because you have the special Blu-ray version. So, they go through that. And so, I was like, I always want to see like stunts and special effects because I am curious to know how they how they filmed that. And
so you watched some of the bonus features?
Some of it, not all of it, just like a few going into it. And then I lost my mind and then called my British friend who also loves Tom Holland. And I was like, wait, what?
He's one
lost
of yours?
my mind. Huh?
You were like, he's one of yours?
Yes. Because, there's this one scene where he like does a thing and he's like, that was really fun. And I was like, what? Did I hear that right? And I was like, is he Australian? Like, is he doing this because they're shooting in London? And I rewound it, watched it again. And he goes, that was really fun. And I'm like, wait, what? Excuse me. And then looked him up and somehow missed this on his Wikipedia page. It goes, Tom Holland is a British actor. And I was like, whoa, my brain just went.
Wow. Well, that's that.
Talk about deception.
My name
as a theme.
Well, yeah, my brain is exploding because I totally thought we would have covered that the first time.
No, I had no idea.
Well, and the thing is not only is he British, but he's like an accomplished like dancer,
stage Broadway dancer. Actor. Well, yeah, and I think that's why, because I thought, because he's like of Broadway, I was like, oh, and he's so young. I thought he was from here.
Well, I don't think he's been on Broadway, but he was in the West End, which is like the London version of Broadway.
Isn't he? I guess he did. Somebody mentioned his name associated with like I'm going to fuck
Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot. I called it Jimmy Elliot on the phone. I was like, Jimmy Elliot. And I think because of that, I was like, oh, American.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was. He was in the West End version of Billy Elliot, which is,
I thought it was the Broadway version. So I was just like, oh, American. He's young. He grew up here. Like he's a theater kid. And he is, but like an American theater kid. Anyway, so that was my hot take is I did not know. And now I know. Learning stuff. Still.
All right. So hot take on Tom Holland. What about the movie? Any hot takes?
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this movie theme was deception is real and it confuses Quincy because that was the theme of the movie and I was definitely deceived. So I feel like the movie was like in two chunks, right? The first half was the like Jake Gyllenhaal setup, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember like he defeats them and I'm like, wait, is that the entire movie? Just like, this is how they use. I was like, I feel like they underused Jake Gyllenhaal and this was the bad guy. And I was like, okay, I guess the movie's over. Like, I guess it's been an hour, 2 hour movie time.
After complaining so many times about like these movies are so long, you're like, it's over after an hour.
Yeah. So then I looked and it's like an hour, 17 minutes movie. And like, I have like another hour. I was like, what? Oh, and then after I looked at the time, I was like, oh, I bet you Jake Gyllenhaal's the bad guy. Like, of course he's the bad guy.
They hit you with the twist.
They hit me with the twist. I was not, And I was like, because I was also confused because I was like, why are they having Jake Gyllenhaal run around with his head covered as like the new good guy? Like that didn't make sense, but like now it was just setting him up to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the movie. It was nice to see Zendaya and her character finally come through. It was great to see Happy come through. Great to see more of Ned. I remember Spider-Man 1. I was like, more Ned.
Yeah.
It was great. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah. This is, I think this is a fun one too. What's kind of for me stands out about it is that it's post-snap, post-blip, they post-Endgame and the Avengers, the Infinity War. So they've kind of gone through all that and you're actually finally dealing with the consequences of, Tony Stark is gone. Who's going to be the new Iron Man. And like for Peter Parker specifically, in the first movie, he was all about like, I want to get out there. I want to, go on missions. I want to be a hero. And then this time he's like the exact opposite of like, I just want to be a kid. I just want to go on my vacation. Yeah. So I thought that was a great way to like just explore his character being in a completely different place. And then the addition of Jake Gyllenhaal, which, I knew him originally from like Donnie Darko back in the day. He really broke out on the scene of like, oh, this really dark movie, with this guy. And he's kind of sexy and kind of cute, but like also kind of creepy. But I feel like, that's kind of what he tends to bring to his roles of just like kind of sinister, but also like mysterious.
A little unhinged. I remember when he came on, I was like, oh, he's playing like a not unhinged person for once.
Yeah. Well, but you do actually learn he is a little off at the end with the twist, which I thought was really interesting because they use the multiverse, which is a legit thing in the MCU now. Mm-hmm. But they use it as like a red herring. He's just like, I'm from a different planet, and the multiverse. And they're like, oh, this thing is real. How cool. But then it's all a trick. And the fact that it's all his character is kind of embedded in the like legacy of what Tony has left behind. While we're mourning Tony, we're also realizing all the consequences of his actions and all the people who he wronged. And now this immediately comes back to bite Peter.
Was he, if we were to watch the Iron Man 2 where he does the barf illusion demo, mm-hmm. I know that one shot was like definitely like, they probably shot it later, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they probably inserted that shot.
Do you know if that was, but like there was one shot where, I don't know, it felt like it could have been real. Like there was like Tony's walking and there's a person in the shadow. Do you know if that was an insert or like, do you think they would have gone as far as setting that up like 10 years ago?
I don't know if they would have had the idea of it at that time. I don't think so. Okay. But I think it's definitely one of those things of like every single time they come back to the stories, it's like, okay, where are we in the MCU? From? Where can we pull from? And what kind of like loops can we bring back? So for me, I thought, especially in a movie where they're mourning Tony, where they're talking about like who's going to step into his shoes, the fact that the villain ends up being kind of like, a consequence of Tony and still his, kind of legacy permeating through the movie, even though he's gone, was a cool, interesting twist. And, allowed for Jake Gyllenhaal to enter the MCU in a kind of a cool way.
I thought his bar scene, his reveal was kind of like, meh. Like evil villain reveal within that bar. It was like
in that monologue.
Yeah, it looked like they like ran out of budget for that scene or something. It just was very like lackluster. And I don't know. It just felt very like empty and barren, but like in a way it was like, like there's so much money everywhere else in this scene. Like this scene feels like, I don't know what happened. It just felt like, I don't know if it gave his villain intro like due diligence.
Oh, you wanted him to have more of like a
something reveal. It just felt really very plain and empty,
Okay. I mean, for me, it was like they were kind of trying to play up the illusion factor of like as soon as Peter left, everything became stripped down. This is like we've exited the Matrix, and this is the real world. Which kind of gives it that visual contrast, like especially like later when he pretends to be Fury and like he uses the illusions to like, take Peter through all those different sequences where he's like, he's in the snow globe, he's in the building, he's falling off the building, he's in the cemetery.
This would be a good movie to do like shrooms too. Just that section.
Oh man, really that would freak me out.
I think it'd be kind of fun. I wanted to ask you, I thought it was, I thought the theme of deception and illusion and appearances can be deceiving was very interesting, especially with social media, especially with like, you also have that underscored by what's his name, Flash, like being on Instagram all day, live streaming everything. And then the reveal of like Peter Parker at the end, like the identity and the story he spins about like who's really evil was really cool, especially with, and then it's interesting too, because, when Jake's Mysterio is in the bridge, like manning all those drones, I was like, oh, this is also very interesting because this is also how like war is fought nowadays, right? Like there's a lot of drone attacks. And then it's, I don't know, just made me think of like the news cycle and like what gets filtered and told here to justify those things abroad. And
yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting because, the questions that left us with, Endgame, and this is kind of like what a lot of fans were asking, like after Endgame, it was like, oh, wow, epic conclusion. Now what? Now what's going to happen? And so kind of answering those questions, I think what they're kind of establishing in this movie is like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because it's like, there's no Iron Man or Captain America that's just sweeping in, being like, I'm the good guy and I'm the hero now, and I'm here to save you. I'm like the known quantity that's going to save you. Now it's going to be like,
I forgot Cap also had his conclusion. So they're really like the top 3 and Black Widow. So there's just like this huge vacuum.
Yeah. So now who's going to step in? How worthy are those people to be the heroes now? How easy, this is kind of reminiscent of Civil War. How easy is it going to be for the public to trust them? And you have Spider-Man who's just a kid, and people being like, so you're going to be next Iron Man? How about you? And he's just like,
like, man, it's a lot of pressure to put on a 16-year-old. And what is it? I just started watching. This is kind of part of my share. It is my share. I just started watching The Last Avatar.
Oh, okay. Airbender.
And I'm like, Aang is 12. And like, they're like, you're the chosen one. And I'm like, this is a lot of adults putting a lot of pressure on these like little kids as like the second coming to say, and I'm like, what do they know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what this movie did great is that they really did focus on that and show how he is still just a kid. Like all he wants to do is like, tell MJ that he likes her and like give her a necklace. And then like he has like his teachers on his butt, trying just to do their best. Which I think was really great standout performances by Martin Starr and JB Smoove, just being like the adults, trying to be the adults in the situation and being like, oh, this crazy stuff is happening.
Very incompetent adults. I love them. They were great.
Yeah. Really, really funny. And also kind of like, allows you kind of be like, oh, we still have that kind of comedic, after such epicness of Endgame, we're just like, we still have that fun lightheartedness in the MCU. And just like the silliness of like the high school romance between like Ned and Betty. Like they start out like, oh, babe, we're together now that we landed. And then right after they're like, oh, we broke up.
It was great. I loved his plan too. And that was the other thing too that was interesting. Like there were so many plans in the movie that got foiled, right? Like his plan to, what was it? His plan to confess to MJ. Then there was a plan to like get inside. Like, so it was just interesting. Like it just kind of never works out the way it's supposed to in your head, but it works out the way it's supposed to, right?
Yeah. I guess eventually he's like, well, we got there, but it wasn't the way that you want to, which I think is like, when you're young, you have a lot of that. You do a lot of that. Like, I'm going to do this, and it's going to go exactly this way. And you like dream it all up and you plan it all out.
But then you freak out when like it doesn't go exact, like one little hiccup happens and you're like, wow, what do I do? My question was, what was going on with the tall woman in the bathroom?
Oh, so she was technically like a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? So she was there to give Peter like an incognito Spider-Man suit.
But that got foiled, completely foiled. Okay.
Well, because I mean, he got the suit, but the kid walked in on him.
Okay. And that was the Night Monkey suit.
Yeah, the Night Monkey suit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like a little confused because I was like, what is happening? And also I was very distracted because I was like, oh, he's definitely going to take his shirt off. And then he took his pants off. And I was like, interesting. I would have taken off my shirt first. And then they took the photo. I was like, oh, that's why he needed to be embarrassed. So that's why he took his pants off first.
Yeah. And then, that leads to that whole sequence of like where he has the glasses and he's having to like use them for the first time. Again, a lot of pressure to put on a kid. Let's give him a whole weapon system and a pair of glasses.
Yeah. I also love to the end, the like Tony humor of it all, of like, even dead, I'm the hero.
Yeah.
So good. Like, so good.
I mean, yeah. And then you're just like, legacy. The universe continues to expand even after Tony is gone. And just, a really cool callback to Tony making his Iron Man suit in the first movie when Peter Parker gets on the plane with Happy and he's just like, I need a suit. And he's like, I can help you with that. And then,
and it goes to show you can't really quick, just to finish on what you said about his legacy. I know like that was something Tony was really concerned with. And from the beginning, right, since the first movie, especially after he saw the consequence of like what his business does.
Yeah.
But it goes to show like you can't, and I think he's trying to make like make up for that. But it also goes to show like you can't control what your legacy is, because he didn't know, Quentin was snubbed. This is like the second or third guy he's snubbed.
Right. Well, and then all the other people who worked with him were all his former employers.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah. Like, so is it like you can't control your legacy, or just be nice to everyone you work with? Both?
I mean, both kind of. Like, I think the fact that like kindness goes such a long way is, a nice moral to take away from it.
Yeah.
But it is that thing too of like, what's the cost of like being a hero? What's the cost of like trying to make the world a better place? If you do it in such a way where at any point you take someone away from somebody else, or you slight someone in a certain way, like that can always come back to you. But but then like the on the other hand, it's like doing nothing. Is that the bigger evil if you could help someone and you didn't?
Because that is still a choice, right?
Yeah. So it's like,
because like even with the glasses, giving him to Peter, like you would think because he's such a good kid, he's not gonna set a drone strike, but like he's human. Accidents happen.
Accidents happen. And it's such a efficient pair of glasses. It's just like right away. You're like, I can barely get things to like, buffer on my phone sometimes. I'm just like, come on. And then all of a sudden it's just like the glasses just like drone strike. Okay. And we're like, wait, what?
Yeah. This is like what the future of Amazon. This is what Jeff Bezos wants out of his drones. Just immediate drop offs. You just think it and it drops off. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing about legacy. Cause I think also maybe like, I'm not there yet, but like, I know some people, I remember in college, there was someone who was like, what's my legacy here? And I was like, like she was like a senior at the time. And I was like, oh boy, like, do I need to be thinking about legacy? Like what I'm going to be known for after. Right. And it's just like, you can't control it.
Yeah. You can't control it. And also it's like, even when you're alive, like, in terms of like the ending, like people can still manipulate how you're viewed. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all we can do is just do our best. That's all we can do. We're just doing our best, y'all. Just be nice to one and do your best. Do what you think is right at the time. Yeah. And hopefully it works out. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess one of the other things I really enjoyed about this movie is like how kind of globetrotting it was. Like it made me a little nostalgic, or just like a little envious of like, wow, I never had that opportunity to like travel when I was young like that. I went on one kind of study abroad trip to like Stratford upon Avon to study Shakespeare. And then so we went to Stratford and London. And then we went to like, I paid for like my own day trip to like Paris, but that was kind of like about it. But like in this movie, they go to Venice, they go to Prague. He ends up in the Netherlands, Berlin, and then eventually London. I was just like, wow, that's a pretty epic trip.
It is pretty epic.
Did you do any traveling when you were young? Like, did you ever do a Europe trip?
No, I have not been to Europe. I'm probably the least. All my friends are very well traveled. I'm probably the least traveled among them. As you were talking, Kay, I was like, and now I'm definitely, not that I was like against traveling. I just never really had the opportunity. But then now that as you're talking, I was like, oh man, maybe I was a little travel averse, not because I'm opposed to the idea, but just like so much of like my family trips were like so uncomfortable and like not fun and led to somebody crying at the end of it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, maybe I was a little like, now that I'm going to sit with it, like in my body, I can feel like, oh, there's a lot of discomfort I like subconsciously associate with travel. Okay. And I was like, oh, maybe that's why I also didn't necessarily like seek out opportunities to travel maybe. But yeah, seeing that and for me, I'm like very interested in like all the food.
Oh, okay.
Like I love eating. So it's like I don't know. I wish American movies spent a little more time showing us some food shots.
You wanted them to eat more meals.
Yeah. Just
hey kids, go out to a restaurant.
Yeah.
You can live vicariously through.
Yeah. Wait, question. Did you have any hot takes with this movie?
For me, it was just like, it was answering that question of now what? I was a little let down that the multiverse wasn't really a thing in this movie.
Mm.
You know, it was kind of
teased.
It was
like
teased.
And then it turned out to be a red herring.
Yeah, it was a red herring. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll get to that at some other point. I will say, though, it has become worth it because the multiverse has, you know, small teaser has opened up, and the way they did it, I was just like, ho, 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 I love this now.
Okay.
This is so cool.
This is exactly what I needed.
And you know, because it is a lot to kind of just like hit you with. So, but you know, phase 4 is the TV shows, and they're able to dole
really
things out.
That. Do you think that was that was deliberate?
I would have to think so.
Like they chose to hold that off for the TV show,
so they could kind of like, you know, parse it out and like, you know, give you little pebbles. And so because putting it in one big movie would have been
a lot to
tackle. But to that end, and you did say you did have that little bit of a spoiler about Spider-Man. I feel like this next Spider-Man movie is now that.
Number 3?
Yeah. Is okay.
I mean, because I know it's not Marvel, but like the Into the Spider-Verse kind of opens that.
Right.
Also, right.
But yeah,
version of that.
This new No Way Home, this third Spider-Man that just came out. I mean, they've been exploring the multiverse in the TV shows, but in terms of like massive introduction of like multiverse, you know, have you even seen any of the trailers for it or anything? Okay, well,
wow, look at how still insulated I am. Still, look at how insulated I am.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, you manage it. Sometimes I don't know. Somehow your algorithm it doesn't get to you.
Nope. I just know Will. I realize they called him William. I think it's Willem
Dafoe. Yeah.
Willem Dafoe. Just that. And then, you know, just seeing when I looked up J.K. Simmons to make sure he was in the original, the Tobey Maguire, I was like, okay, so he's in it. Yeah. But, you know, I would have never been like multiverse. I just was like, oh, they're, you know, bringing them back.
Yeah. Cameo crossovers. Well, I guess, it's a thing. It's a thing. Okay. And the new one, it's a thing.
Well, now I'm excited because somebody was like, let's go watch it this past week leading into the Sunday. And I was like, nope, I'm going to wait. I'm watching number 2 this week. And then I'm going to go watch it.
Okay.
And then it's doing really, the other thing I know about it is like, it's doing really well at the box office.
Yeah.
And people are really enjoying the movie itself.
Yeah. And I think it's because for me, again, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but for me, like this movie, when they were teasing, they were like, ooh, multiverse. And then like, I was ready to be like, hit me with it. This new one is kind of where they do that.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was kind of my take, but overall I did enjoy it. For me, I enjoyed, you know, the silliness, the comedy of it, and just the fact that it was really cute. Like it's a love story when you think about it, because he just wants to give Zendaya the necklace.
You know what? And the other thing too is this felt more like, okay, maybe I'm saying this because I'm mostly an adult now. And I was like, oh, this feels very high school. And then when I think back to like the Tobey Maguire MJ with Kirsten Dunst, right? Like that felt like adults in high school playing high school.
Right.
For whatever reason. And it's not an acting thing. It just felt very adult for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Tobey Maguire being super awkward in those movies.
Yeah, he was great.
And then, but like playing that Peter Parker awkwardness, but like everyone in like all the young people in this movie, which there are so many more young people than there ever was in the previous Spider-Mans, they all had that. They all had that, like, we're young, we're being kind of cute and we're awkward and we're not, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, there's all these shows where they're set in high school and the kids, they tend to act like adults and they tend to be just very like bold and kind of like, you know, very adult. They're just very adult. It doesn't capture like bold.
The innocence of youth,
like just even at the end where they have their kissing scene, they're just like, and they kiss and like, oh, okay, thank you, I'll see you later. Really, you know, that cute. Whole kind of like awkward really jitteriness.
And it wasn't like a sexy cute. It wasn't like a sexy like upside down kiss. And it was like, yeah. You know, like that's what that kiss was. That was like a panty dropping kiss, you know? And this one was just like a genuine, honest kiss. Oh, and speaking to that, I also realized, it was like interesting that Spider-Man, who's so young, gets like picked up to be the next like Tony Stark 2.0. But I'm like, I guess that makes sense because even watching him like fly around, you know, on his way to his date with MJ, I'm like, oh, I get it. It makes sense. Like whether you're an adult or a child, this like he symbolizes like hope because he's like, he still has a full life ahead of him as far as like what he can bring and give versus like, I feel like if he had, I don't know, if they had, it had been like Thor or whatever, right? Because that's what I was wondering was like, why end on Spider-Man? Why end phase 3 on Spider-Man and not end on Endgame? Right. But it's still like, one, it's brilliant because it sets you up for phase 4. But 2, I'm like, oh, he represents like hope and youth and like more to come versus like Thor's already like an adult. Like who else is in line?
Well, and like Thor has gone through some trauma. So it's not like it. And, you know, there's that great scene in the beginning of they're talking about like, you know, they're raising money for people who are displaced by the blip. So it's like they bring out Spider-Man to help with donations and he'll sign autographs and he'll take pictures. So it's almost that amalgam of like, you know, Captain America in the beginning, he was this, you know, poster boy for World War II, Captain America, buy bonds, propaganda, you know, and then Iron Man was this like out in your face, like I'm a hero, I'm going to do what I want. And I'm going to, you know, protect the, you know, I'm going to protect my people and this earth no matter what, because I have this genius. Now he's not only is he a kid, but he has to like, again, vacuum. He has to fill in both of those spots. He's like now a poster boy. People know who he is.
And then he's starting to like, not yet, but like, it's like people are getting hurt. And like, that's exactly like, it echoes Tony and Black Widow's journey and their like despairing guilt as far as like what they've done.
Right. Like getting hurt like post blip or there's still villains out there or
no, like with, you know, Tony, like, you know, he says it, he goes, I feel like I keep hurting my friends. Right. And like Ned even goes like, you know, make sure to keep us safe. Right. Like that, they're already building the foundation to that, you know, brick house. They're gonna, you know, the guilt house. Right.
Yeah. Like, you know, again, the consequences of being a hero. Everyone, your love is always in danger. Or you have some, you know, the more you save, the more that there is to lose. For me, that's kind of what I appreciate about this movie. I was like, okay, this is a taste of what is to come, because now that there is such a vacuum and there was such a hard stop with like Endgame, we're done with a lot of these stories.
And I think, you know, this movie did a good job post Endgame for me. I don't know if the internet/Marvel fans are like, no, but I thought it was a good movie to follow up after the epicness of Endgame.
Yeah. And then I will say like phase 4, that's kind of what a lot of that is. It's just like, okay, all of this stuff happened. Now, what are the consequences of that? Because that's a lot. It is a lot to deal with when you think of it. You know, half the population disappearing and then half the population coming back. There's going to be consequences to that.
Yeah. There was one more I wanted to say. Oh, and I loved, are we going to talk about end credits?
Oh yeah.
I love that he got, was that the end credit? I can't remember now. It's all mushing. The reveal that he is Spider-Man.
Yes.
Just because I think Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 in the Tobey Maguire versions, it's always like my identity is concealed. Like I can't be, you know, and then just to have that literally, you know, the hood taken off. Just to be like, this is him.
Yeah. So, you know, pretty big moment. J. Jonah Jameson for the Daily Bugle, which in this version is an online version. Huge in the middle of New York, you know, a reporting saying that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. which is huge because it brings this whole twist into it.
And it's updated now, right? Because in the Tobey Maguire, it was all news. It was still kind of in that like superhero bubble. We weren't making it in real life. And now it's like more like in this world, this is how it would happen. And it happened exactly how it would happen with big breaking news.
Yeah. And, it being kind of, video version and internet, version. And they bring J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons, into the MCU, who played that same part in the Spider-Man, Sony Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. So we're getting that taste of, bringing other versions or bringing characters that have come before that haven't specifically been in the MCU movies.
That means
so far.
Possibly the Into the Spider-Verse version could also possibly. What, his name's not Malcolm, is it? No, it's
Miles.
Miles
Morales.
Miles could possibly come into play as well, right?
Well, they've actually, that was a bit of an Easter egg. So Donald Glover's character in the previous Spider-Man. No. His character is connected to Miles Morales.
Okay.
In the comic book. So there is the potential that he might already be there.
My face is broken, guys. You guys can't see this in the podcast, but my jaw's dropped and is on the floor.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And again, they're allowing to kind of pepper in these little crossovers, which nerds like me will so appreciate, because I watched the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. I watched the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans. I haven't
seen the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans. That's
another British Spider-Man. Andrew
He's
Garfield is
British?
He's also British. Yes.
Wow, I don't know anything. Wow, that's so amazing. Wow, these Brits and their really good American accents.
I mean, I saw an interview with, what was it, Zachary Levi. He was like, he talked about how he auditioned for the part in Tangled that he plays. He plays Flynn Rider, the main guy lead, and he went in saying he was British, so he could get the audition, because they were only looking at British people. And then when he got it, they were like, "Oh, let's bring the accent. We're actually going to make it American." He's like, "Oh, okay." But he initially didn't even get an audition, because they were only looking at British actors. So he said that he was British, and that's how he got the audition. And then he ended up getting the part.
Good for him.
So he has his own.
But
little
it goes to
rant
show,
against
like,
British.
Hey, like, why limit what's possible?
Yeah. But
why limit accents, color, creed, gender, sexuality? Like, why limit that?
Yeah.
Because you could miss out. Like, that's what this is tangential, but speaking to that, like, I was looking at Ted Lasso, and a lot of the people, like, the way they chose to cast, they weren't doing like big names. I think just because, Jason Sudeikis, his name is pretty big. There, like, a lot of unknowns were not unknowns, they've been working, but like, relative to like Hollywood and mainstream media, they hadn't been in anything major. And it was like, wow, Brett Goldstein is one of the writers. And like, I think he's so perfect for that role. Like, and we would have missed out on that.
Yeah. And, but though, British, they were all British, definitely British. So it's almost like, were they given more?
Well, that was cast in England.
Right.
So they use a British casting director. So I'm like, like leeway for that. But like, here in America, like, there's a lot of limitations. Yeah. There's a lot of people out here working, trying to break through.
Yeah. And, and I think what's interesting is when you do find someone who is unknown and they do break through, it's become such a celebration of that person, because it's just like, we get to discover, but the ability for people to take that chance on like a new person, so the larger audience can allow to be discovered. Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's like great publicity. And I think there's this like thing of like, oh, you're an unknown, so you can't, but like, you're not literally picking an unknown like off the street, maybe, right? But like, they're an unknown because they have not been put on a bigger TV show yet, right? Like, that doesn't mean they haven't been working, right?
Yeah. And and sometimes it is an unknown. Sometimes it's like not even an actor, but because the character was so specific, they wanted someone genuine to that experience. That's where they have to find them. They're not even in the current acting pool. I'm just, but I'm not even an actor, so I don't even have to deal with that. Just trying to write stuff. So let's dive into those end credits. J. Jonah Jameson reveals that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he's just like, oh no. So big twist to leave off of, to going into the next one. And then you have the very end of the movie where you see that Nick Fury and Maria Hill are actually Skrulls. You remember Skrulls from Captain Marvel?
Yes.
And so they've been, that's kind of like a mind shake your mind, because it's like how long they've been like that. How long has Fury actually been up in space? Because they cut to space and so see Fury up there, and opens up another kind of like big ball of questions of like what is happening, who's actually in charge of Shield, what is the mission, like now again post Endgame, who's in charge, what's the mission, what's Fury actually focusing on, if he's letting the Skrulls impersonate him on Earth, and like having them handle Peter Parker. What was that?
Sounds like he's focused on being on vacation, just like Peter was trying to be on.
Fury actually got his vacation. The one that Parker
I just love seeing him walk around barefoot. That was great. Like Nick Fury / Samuel L. Jackson walking around being like, where are my shoes? I was like, solid. That's how you know he's really on vacation.
So, that was Spider-Man.
Wait, this was the first movie where Stan doesn't make his cameo, right?
Who?
Stanley.
Right. This is the first one without Stanley cameo.
Yeah.
Because
I noticed the placard at the end. Is that what they do just for this movie? Because this is the first movie they don't have him in, or do they do that for subsequent movies?
Probably this movie. The thing is I don't remember. Probably this movie, because here's the thing: this is the last movie that got released for the MCU until this year, our current year, 2021, because they did not release anything in 2020. So I don't think the next movie would be Black Widow, and I don't think they had that in that movie. So we have finished off phase 3
with movies.
Spider-Man Far From Home. 23.
23.
Yes.
Michael, isn't that Michael Jordan's basketball number?
Yeah, that is Michael Jordan's basketball number. So that brings us to the end of the Marvel portion of the podcast. So let's go ahead and transition into our stretch and share. I believe it's my turn to do a stretch. If we just want to do some next stuff, because that's where I've been feeling tight this week. So do you want to start your share?
I started rewatching Airbender.
Okay,
Last Airbender.
That's animated, right?
One, I forgot how fun it was. It was great. They're like releasing the casting for, Daniel J. Kim got cast in it.
In the live action version.
Yeah. And I really hope they don't lose the comedy in it. Like it's so easy to make it like serious and superhero, but like in the cartoon series, there's so much like comedy in it.
Okay.
There's great action, and there's like big themes and stakes, and like for a show of its time, it's very like diverse in its casting, and like very forward. Like Katara calls out her brother Sokka for being, like she's like, that's sexist. So it's really cool to just revisit that and see those things being called out. There's like a bunch of like interesting female characters who are badass, which is really great. So I hope they don't lose the comedy, because there's so much like good comedy, and like, Aang is so fun and full of life. Also like a mess. Like he's like running around, like trying to go to the North Pole, and like died laughing because he's like trying to show off for Katara. And it's like, bro, you have like a huge mission ahead of you and you just want to make these pit stops to like do all this fun stuff, right? Like, but as a 12-year-old boy would, right? Like, I don't know, it was a great blast from the past.
So I'm not very familiar with the Airbender universe. I just remember there was like the Shyamalan movie that everyone hated a few years back.
I even watched that. Yeah. Not because I was like ill gross. I just don't think I caught it.
But it basically, it's kind of like superhero, kind of like superhero, but they all have element powers, right?
Yeah, they're not, I guess not superheroes because they're not like superheroes, but I guess that's a good way to put it. They're like people, it's like set in like, you know, indigenous times ish, right? Like not a fairy tale, like a genre-y fantastical land where there's 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. And then like there's an avatar that comes and like keeps the balance, and then the Fire Nation goes nuts and like takes over the world. And Aang, who is the last airbender, this is part of the setup, this is not any spoilers, he like goes into hiding for 100 years and then like wakes up one day.
And he's like the chosen one.
He's the chosen one. He's 12. And then like everyone has forgotten about him because it's 100 years. And then like him and his 2, they're siblings. They're from the water tribe. And one is a waterbender who like is just learning, and they go on an adventure. And the series setup is they need to get him to the North Pole because there's like waterbenders in the North Pole, and he needs to learn and master all the elements to bring balance back.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. It's great. Made me watch it and made me realize, this is what I want my life to be. And he has this huge water buffalo, air bison that he like air buffalo he rides. It's very like Hayao Miyazaki. I was like, this is what I want. This is why I collect animals. It's just,
I just want something to ride.
I just want me to have like animal friends. And I'm like, I'm going on adventures. Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right.
What about you?
I might check some of that out. So I watched this thing called, it was a special on ABC, I believe, live in front of a studio audience, Facts of Life in Different Strokes. So what there was they did like a real live action of 2 episodes of classic television, one of Facts of Life, one of Different Strokes, and they filmed it in front of a live audience, kind of like they used to back in early days of sitcom. And it was kind of like a celebration of Norman Lear, who created both shows. And it was super interesting because you were basically seeing like a play on television.
Oh, cool.
Which, you know, sitcoms kind of used to be like, though in the more modern times, you know, they actually had cuts and, you know, different locations. Whereas like, since these were from like, I think the 1960s, like they were like all in one space. And so all the actors had to kind of like stay in it the whole time. So it was interesting to watch because it was basically a play on television, and they had really big names playing the part. So they had like Jennifer Aniston, Katherine Hahn, Alison Tolman, Gabrielle Union, and
I'm
Dow.
obsessed with Jennifer Aniston, by the way. Ugh.
Do you watch Morning Show?
I started watching that with Ted Lasso, and then I just like binged Ted Lasso over Friendsgiving.
Cool.
Morning Show, she's gotten like better. And you still see her Rachelisms, which I love. I don't know. She's so good.
Well, it was interesting. I've tried to watch Morning Show. It just gets so intense for me. I'm just like, this is making me anxious. But what was interesting watching them in this special was like, wow, you're really having to see them kind of like stay in it, you know, like be just acting the whole time and interact with each other and live in these, really kind of inhabit the parts because they can't stop. They can't just cut the scene. Because so like, even when they're done with their dialogue, you know, they retreat to the back and they're having to kind of like do business and stuff like that. I was like, it made me miss the theater. It made me miss seeing like a play and seeing like something on stage because, you know, you can still see everything, even though stuff isn't in the forefront.
That's cool.
And then the different strokes, they had Kevin Hart and Damon Wayans and John Lithgow and Ann Dowd again playing those parts. And I didn't really watch those shows when they were first out, so it was just, as a person who like wants to write for television and has studied a lot of television writing, it was an interesting study to be like, oh, this is how they used to do it, and this is to see kind of hear how the jokes played, and see the situations and the twists and the conflict, because it was very simple back then. It was just like, oh, a secret is revealed, and then they fight.
I'm also like watching not reruns, like Seinfeld. I guess there's no such thing as reruns anymore because everything's on Netflix.
It's just not new yet, not premiered.
Old stuff. Watching Seinfeld, I was like, man, this is like, I feel like watching Seinfeld, I was like, this is such a great study. Similarly to what you were saying, Kay, was like a study on like how to sitcom act. Cause like I don't know. And the writing is really clean and sharp, and you really can like pick out the joke setups in it, and like, it's a good study on like sitcoms. Just like, I can hear the musicality. I can hear like, oh, I don't know if I would have said it that way. But I don't know. It's great. I love that. This is me just yes-anding what you said really hard.
So I, for anyone interested in, TV history, TV writing, just, getting a different taste of what's kind of modern television and getting a kind of view into what the way sitcoms used to be like, I think it's an interesting study. So that brings us to the end of our stretch and share. Let's go ahead and dive into the makeup portion.
Hey, are you wearing anything today?
I am wearing makeup today. I basically just did a foundation and concealer on parts, a little bit of blush, and then a little bit of lip gloss, which is tinted because I was using it with another lipstick, kind of a liquid lipstick. And so whenever I would use the liquid lipstick, the gloss that comes with it, I would use that after I applied the lipstick. But now I just use the lip gloss because so much of the lipstick has rubbed off onto the gloss that I get a little bit of it, and it's not as dark and dramatic as just wearing the lipstick.
I think this is great. I think this is like my by far your most successful application of foundation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Like it looks, I mean, again, I feel like we lose a lot of detail because of the camera. But it just feels, it's always really good, but like this feels like really even, clear, like, cool. I could hardly tell you had foundation on.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was going for like natural kind of casual look, something that if I were to show up on a Zoom, people want to be like, oh, you're wearing makeup, or just like, oh, she looks, but put together. Yeah. I noticed you are wearing makeup as well. You have a bit of a cat eye going there.
Kay, look at you.
Yeah. I'm noticing now.
Yay.
Anything else? Maybe some blush or just foundation?
Yeah, foundation, definitely. And then I just have a little bit of a eyeshadow, blush, you're right. And then I just filled out my eyebrows.
Okay. Cool.
Because they're usually just sparse.
All right. Got it. And then the just liquid cat eye.
Yeah, liner. I lined my tight line and then did a cat eye.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, I think we're also talking about how to clean brushes today. Is that correct?
Yes. I love this. I clean my brushes every day.
Every day?
No, sorry, not every day. After each use. It's not a deep clean. I have a very specific makeup brush cleaner I like to use. Not sponsored by Sephora, but I'm about to promo them. I like this brush cleaner by Sephora. It's called Refresh. It's a daily clean. I might be using this wrong now that I think about it. It's an alcohol-free brush cleaner. Oh no. Okay. They say dry towel or cloth. I should probably switch to a dry towel or cloth. I spray it on a paper towel after I use here, I'll demo. I'll do one spritz, right? Get the brush I've used and just rub it off. I mean, you can use a towel for this, right? And then this is from just my makeup session today. Right.
Okay.
I do this because, and what happened was when I ran out of this, I try to use like other like substitute brands and I didn't like it. Something about this product for me, it just really works and gets the gunk off really quick and fast. I tried the e.l.f. one. They have like, it's like a little like clay thing that you do. And I'm like, it gets too messy. It creates more of a buildup. And I noticed that one time I ran out of makeup brush cleaner and then like was using the gunky cleaner. I started to break out because there was like dirt built up. This is a very old. So then if I want to do a deep clean of my brushes, this is a very old Sephora brand. It probably doesn't look like this anymore. It probably looks like this. This is the Refresh bottles. This is the new one. It's the makeup brush shampoo.
Okay. Is that a similar thing where you spray it on?
What I do, it's more like a gel. Here, I'll put some on because I have the paper towel. It's like a gel. And what you do is I'm going to just wipe it off. But I'll wet my brush, squirt some gel on and just swirl the brush in my palms. And all the soapiness will pull the deep colors and like debris and build up out. And then I will like squeeze them dry and then I'll lay them out. Like if this is the ledge of a sink, I'll just lay them out like this. Or like on a paper towel or
so
a paper
you would
plate.
you would never like soak the brush in water.
No, I think I wouldn't, mostly because in college
or rinse it in water.
You can no, you are rinsing it in water. So after you do this, right, there's like, makeup gunky, not gunk, but like, the gel, you can see the color start I can't speak today. The color in the brush gets pulled into the gunk. The gel, you would rinse your hand off and then you would run water underneath it. But I wouldn't soak it. I think I was taking a painting class in college and they said not to soak your brushes because it eats away at the glue or whatever holding the brush. So yes, you would rinse, but like I wouldn't sit the brush in water.
Okay. So you would just brush it in the cleaning liquid, cleaning stuff,
the cleaning solution,
and then rinse.
Yeah.
How about, is that the same with like eye brushes, like the ones you use for eyeshadow?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
This is what I use for daily. So like after every application, and there's some like, if I'm traveling and it's like, but I've noticed it makes a difference just because that one time I didn't clean my brush and then I had like gunky cleaning brush, like it just broke out immediately. This is great. Here, I can even point out what I used on this paper towel. Eyeshadow. This is my eyebrow, foundation, concealer, eyeshadow, and blush.
Okay. Yeah. The eyebrow one, was that the spoolie brush?
You can also do the spoolie. It's the angled, it's like a stiffer. I don't think I have you might have one. It's a stiffer angled brush that you use to fill in your eyebrow.
Okay. Cool.
And the worst
after
comes
every
to worst,
application, huh?
Yeah, just to keep them clean. I found out like most women don't keep their brushes clean.
I do not.
And so it's a lot of like bacteria buildup in there too. And sometimes not so much anymore, but there was a time where I feel like I was really sensitive to like styes in my eye. And so then I was like, okay, let me keep it clean because,
Okay. So for someone like me who has yet to wash my brushes, would you recommend that I do kind of a deeper, like with a gel type clean on all of them first? And then after each application, do the refresh? Okay. And so since you do refresh on a regular basis with your other brushes, how often do you use the deeper gel?
When I'm good, I'm like once a month. And I think it also depends, right? Like, I feel like, if you're on set, makeup artists are like constantly cleaning their brushes. And I think they're using alcohol too. I mean, because they have to, because I feel like I don't know. I don't know the reason why I'm speculating, but I'm guessing they have to because those brushes are being on multiple people. And I know I spoke with a makeup artist and she was like, I'm going to have to go home and clean these brushes. Right. So those are like professional tools they're using like every day. So it's a little different. I don't wear makeup every day. I'm probably due for a deep brush cleaning. I'd say like once a month.
Okay.
Yeah. Every other if you're not a heavy user, but I feel like I'm offset with the daily cleaner just to get like the initial gunk out.
Okay. And so how long does it usually take for the brushes to dry?
I think because this is essential oil, this right here, I just swirl them around, get the color off, and I just put them away. Like it's not a big deal.
I guess after a deeper clean where you might end up.
I just leave them out for a day and just go about my day and ignore it. I feel like definitely like the fluffier, denser brushes will probably need a longer dry. But I just leave them out and just don't pay attention.
Okay.
Like a day or two tops.
All right. Yeah. Are there other types of things you use for in makeup, like other than brushes that you tend to need to sterilize on a regular basis? Like
I have a little puff pad I use to the setting powder I use comes in a puff pad and not a brush because it's a press compact. So I'll again squirt that spritz of and just like run the puff pad over it. Anything else? Sponges, if I'm being super Asian, I'm like, I should reuse these sponges. Sponges, I'd probably, because they soak stuff up, I probably would. That's not true. I have a beauty blender. With the beauty blender, I'll like, what would I do? With the dry sponge, I would probably like wait for a deep clean to probably reuse. Also, there's different sides of a sponge you can use for, the triangular ones.
Yeah.
There's different sides you can use. If you're trying to reuse it, I'd probably do a deep clean to reuse it just because I feel like there's a lot of buildup. I'm guessing most makeup people would be like, just throw it away and get a new one, right?
Yeah.
But like the Asian in me is like, should I reuse these? For the beauty blender, I think it's different because generally people are using that wet. So I would wet it, use it. And I think I would probably if I'm lazy, I would spritz it and just like roll it around in the spritzer.
Those kind of like squishy ball type ones. Okay.
And then probably just run it underwater just to get it out because it's already wet.
All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I remember I looked up on the internet once to clean the brush that I use for my foundation because I realized I had actually never washed it and I was using it a lot more because we were doing this podcast. And so I ended up just using like dish soap and like swishing it around in a dish soap and water and rinsing that. And I'm not sure how, it did look cleaner. So that
I feel like everyone's go-to is like use Dawn, right? Because they use them on ducks. So I'm like, if you can use it on a duck, you can use it on a brush. I'm guessing.
That's good to know.
That's
what I did use. I used Dawn because I was like, it works for my dishes and I eat off those.
That's what happened with like my dog. Something happened with my dog and they were like, make sure you use Dawn. I was like, is this like product branding or is this like actually like their formula is actually like good,
it's in their commercials of where they're like washing ducks and stuff with it, so it's like I guess if they unless they CGI'd that duck in there, they're able to it came out alive.
Do you have any interest in like a makeup cleaner that you're interested in? Do you want to keep Dawn dish soap cleaner? Do you want to try and explore cleaners?
Yeah, I think I'll explore cleaners. I think getting something specifically for makeup is always helpful because it's just like it's made for this.
Yeah. And this comes in a big bottle like this and a travel size bottle. When I first got it, I got this travel size bottle just to like test it to see if I wanted to use it. Similarly, when I got the gel, they were trying to get me to buy this one. And I was like, realistically, I'm not. I was like, be honest with yourself. Are you going to clean your bottle? Like you're not. So I got the travel and it's lasted me long. Now I just get the big brush and pour it into a tinier bottle just because like I don't want to carry this big brush or a big bottle around.
Right.
And so now I just like dispense it in, but there's travel sizes. So you don't have to feel like you're committed.
Okay. Yeah, that'd
also,
be
you
good.
can return things. I don't know if you know this, Kay. I didn't know until much later. Like you can return makeup products. I didn't know. Like I thought if you bought a color or something, you had it for life and you can go back and say it's not my color, or if you have a reaction to it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I think I would have to get like the deeper clean. I think all my brushes I would definitely have to deep clean them first because, you know, I just was starting out. And so even with like the eyeshadow ones, they have multiple colors on them.
Yeah. So this will help.
Yeah. So I've been like, cause I was just like, I didn't use this side. So I'll use this side when I was trying to, you know, mess it up. And the thing is, it's just like, well, if I was using them all for like the same look that day, I'd be like, well, they're close enough and I'm gonna be buffering them anyway, so good enough. But yeah, it would be good if I actually give them all deep clean so I can like start fresh again. And
I think you're going to see a difference, especially now that you're more practiced. Like, oh, like the product is coming, but like it's applying smoother and or better, depending on how much buildup is in your brushes.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess, and especially with the ones that I used to buffer, I'm guessing that would probably help.
Yeah.
Kind of
especially the ones that you've had like multiple colors run through. Cause I'm guessing now the colors might come out a little muddier now because it has old colors on it. So when you apply new colors, there's like old colors with the new colors.
Yeah. The application. So for the application, I kind of just put a lot on, and then I just kind of like put it a little, like just like a couple taps. So I know it's just like the top layers of what I put on it, and then I'll turn it around and put like a blot, and then just put it like tap it a couple times, and then I use the buffering, which has all the different colors I've used. So that's probably
like all the ways you're trying to deal with not
because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge.
I think you'll really like this. This dries really easily, and it really takes off all the other color. I remember when I got and this is like maybe it works for other people. It just didn't work for me because I got the e.l.f. like, I don't know, it was like a bar, and I was like sitting there and all the colors coming, and I was like, this is making a mess, and this is like this is turning into more work, and I just need a clean brush like quickly. Yeah, you know, I'm using it for me, like it's not for anyone else. I can't sit here and just swirl it in this like bar of soap and just like, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like it's every single time it's kind of makes it a whole deal versus.
Yeah. Like, and this, you can just do it at your desk, right? Like the other cleaners, I was like, oh, I need to be by a sink, like water's draining. And I'm like, I need something quicker than this.
Yeah.
So that's what
and that's always helpful to know what's like the quick and easy way to do it. Cause then it makes it easier to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Cool. Do you have any thematic connection? To the makeup and the movie?
Okay, so I have like 2 drafts of this. But this is a better one. Spider-Man shows us illusion is like dirt. It gets in the way. And that's why we clean our brushes.
Very, very nice.
Do you have yours?
My connection was this movie is kind of cleansing our palette and renewing the MCU post-Endgame, post-Tony, post-Infinity Saga. And so like cleaning your brushes, you're renewing and cleansing your brushes so you can build a new palette. And expanded palette and expanded looks on your faces.
I love
as we shall expand the MCU. So yeah. And so that brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to reach out and find us or find out more about Marvel Makeup, you can follow us on all social media at Marvel Makeup, or you can email us at marvelmakeuppod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts.
And please give us 5 stars so that our Asian moms know why we now track time in phases.
Yep, because that's the way things are chunked up in the MCU. That's how we shall tell time from now on. So thanks, everyone. Catch you next time on Marvel and Makeup. Marvel and Makeup is hosted and produced by Quincy Cho and Kay Kanapu. Quincy is an actor-writer based in Los Angeles, California. Kay is a writer-performer for Filipino AF and an alum of the CBS Diversity Sketch Showcase. You can follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Quincy Dinosaur and at Kay Kanapu.
The music for Marvel and Makeup was composed by Clarence Yap, and our artwork was designed by Patty Lin. You can find them on Instagram at Clarence_Yap and at pattylin.jpg. See our show notes for even more info.
Marvel and Makeup is also a member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a network of Asian American hosted podcasts. Please check out our fellow Potluck pods by going to the website podcastpotluck.com.
Hi, I'm Marvin.
And I'm Rira.
And we're the hosts of Books and Boba, a book club and podcast dedicated to books by Asian and Asian American authors.
Each month, we pick a book by an Asian author to read and discuss on the show.
We read a variety of genres, including contemporary and historical fiction, sci-fi and fantasy, romance and cozy mysteries, and so much more.
Our past book club picks have included Pachinko by Minjin Lee, Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Ribeye, Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, and The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang.
Every month, we also go through the latest news in Asian American literature, as well as chat with some awesome Asian authors about their works.
So whether you want to start reading for fun again or diversify your TBR list, we got your Asian literature cravings covered. For more info, check out our website at booksandboba.com, and you can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever you find your podcasts.
Part of the Potluck Podcast Collective.
Fun. Cool.
Oh man, that was so fun.